Hey, so tonight we are going to talk about something they definitely did not teach you in history class. The incredible women who basically ran the Wild West from behind the scenes. I am talking about madams, those shrewd businesswomen who turned what most folks considered sinful into serious empire building. Oh, and if you are enjoying these stories, I would really appreciate a like or subscribe. I am super curious where you are all listening from. So drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. It always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world. All right, find that cozy spot, take a nice slow breath, and just let your body sink into whatever you are lying on. We are heading back to the American frontier of the 1870s. And trust me, you are going to be real grateful for that mattress by the time we are done. So congratulations, you just woke up in a cramped room above a Wild West saloon. The first thing that hits you is the smell, not just body odor, though there is plenty of that. It is a complex mixture of wood smoke from the pot-bellied stove in the corner, cheap perfume trying to mask everything else, and the unmistakable scent of last night, whiskey and tobacco that seems permanently embedded in the rough wooden floorboards. Your nose wrinkles as you catch another layer horse manure from the street below, wafting through the thin cotton curtains that barely cover the single window. The sounds come next to piano being tuned somewhere. Downstairs, the notes repeating and adjusting the clatter of a wagon passing by on the dusty street wheels, catching on the uneven ground voices calling to each other in a mixture of English, Spanish, and what sounds like German. A woman's laugh, sharp and practiced, cuts through it all. You are lying on a narrow iron bed frame with a lumpy horsehair mattress that pokes in all the wrong places. The scratchy wool blanket covering you is faded red, once fancy, but now worn thin in spots. No sheets. Those are for the high-class establishments, and this is not one of them. Next to the bed sits a chipped ceramic wash basin with water that has already gone lukewarm, a sliver of harsh lye soap beside it. The room itself is tiny, just enough space for the bed, a wobbly three-legged table with a coal oil lamp, and a battered trunk that holds all the worldly possessions of whoever calls this place home. The walls are thin enough that you can hear someone snoring in the next room. On a nail by the door hangs a faded calico dress, a pair of worn leather boots beneath it. Welcome to 1878. This is life for a soiled dove in a western mining town. Good news, you are not actually one of the working girls. Bad news, you are the madam who runs this place. In the American West of the 1870s and 1880s, being a madam was pretty much the only route to independent wealth that a woman could have. Think about it, women could not vote. Most respectable jobs were closed to them. They could not get business loans from banks, and they could barely own property in most places without some man's name attached to the deed. But madams, these women found the loophole in society's rules. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, your muscles complaining with every movement. Running a brothel is not exactly restful work. You have been up until the early hours, making sure the customers behave themselves, that the money changed hands properly, and that none of your girls were being mistreated or holding back on your cut. Your head throbs slightly from the 2 glasses of whiskey you allowed yourself. Good for business to drink with customers. Bad for your head the next morning. As you stand, your bare feet meet rough wooden planks that have not seen a proper scrubbing in years. There are gaps between some boards wide enough to see the saloon below. Splinters are a daily hazard. You reach for a worn cotton wrapper to throw over your chemise before heading to the wash basin. The water is cold now, but you splash some on your face anyway. No mirror here. Those are expensive and easily broken in a place where drunken cowboys and miners are frequent visitors. You know your face by feel anyway. The lines at the corners of your eyes that were not there 5 years ago. The set of your mouth that has grown harder over time. You are 35 now, have been running this place for nearly 7 years. Not the fanciest brothel in town, but not the worst either. You have 6 girls working for you, 3 in rooms along this narrow hallway, 3 more in the small building out back. Most madams in town started out as working girls themselves. Some still take special customers, the wealthy ones, the ones with power who might be useful, but not you. You figured out early that the real money was not in selling your own company, but in taking a percentage from others. Downstairs you hear the bartender starting his day, glasses clinking as he sets up. Time to get moving. You have supplies to order, a sheriff to pay off, and a new girl arriving on the afternoon stage who needs to be shown the ropes. You pull on a dark blue skirt and white shirt waist practical clothes for the business side of your day. Later, you will change into something more impressive. Silk if you have it, velvet if you do not. Part of being a successful madam is looking the part. The customers expect it, and appearances matter in this business. The famous madams like Maddie Silks in Denver or Jenny Rogers knew exactly how to use their appearance to project success. If you look successful, you attract a better class of customer and can charge higher prices. It is basic business sense, but with a feminine twist. These women wore the finest dresses, dripped with jewelry, and made sure everyone in town knew they were doing well. Speaking of Maddie Silks, there is a story that when she first arrived in Denver in the 1870s, she rolled into town with 4 girls she had hired in Kansas City. But they did not just travel straight there. Maddie was smart. She had what she called a portable boarding house set up in her coach. The girls conducted business at every mining camp along the way. By the time they reached Denver, they had already made enough to set up shop in style. That is the kind of thinking that separated successful madams from the rest. They saw opportunities where others just saw hardship. You tighten the laces of your boots, wincing as they press against a blister from yesterday. Comfortable footwear is not really an option in your line of work. The dainty boots with their pointed toes and 2-inch heels are murder on your feet, but they are part of the uniform. At least you are not wearing the corset, yet that torture device can wait until evening. As you finish dressing, your mind runs through the accounts. Last night was profitable. A payday for the mines means free spending customers. You keep the books yourself, not trusting anyone else with the figures. In your bottom drawer, under a false panel, sits a leather-bound ledger with every transaction carefully noted. Another book, the one you would actually show if some doggone lawman came asking questions, sits in plain sight with considerably smaller numbers. Most successful madams are excellent with money. They have to be. Jenny Rogers, the queen of the row in Denver, invested her brothel earnings into the city's irrigation and reservoir infrastructure, turning a tidy profit on that too. Maddie Silks bought real estate all over Denver. By the time she retired, she owned half a block of prime downtown property. The system works like this. A girl might charge $5 for her company. That same $5 covers her room and board at your establishment. Anything she makes beyond that basic amount could be used for clothes, medicine, or saved for the future. But some madams are not that generous. If a girl does not make a minimum, she might find herself out on the street. Business is business after all. You are not that harsh. You understand that everyone has off nights or times when they are under the weather. But you do take 50% of everything your girls make, providing room, board, some protection, and an established clientele in return. Beyond the basic exchange of services, there is alcohol, lots of it watered down and marked up by as much as 60%. That is where the real money is. Get the customers drinking, get them paying for drinks for the girls, which are mostly colored water, and the profits roll in. Some saloon girls earn commissions on the drinks they sell, but that money usually goes right back to the madam to cover the cost of fancy clothes or other necessities. You make your way downstairs, each step on the narrow staircase creaking loudly enough to announce your arrival. The saloon is quiet this early, just the bartender wiping down the already spotless bar top with a rag that has seen better days. He nods at you respectfully. He knows who signs his pay vouchers. "Morning, Miss Catherine. he says, using the name you have adopted for your business dealings. Your real name has not passed your lips in years. Most madams operate under assumed names. It is safer that way. Morning, Thomas. Any trouble after I turned in? You ask, surveying the room for damage from last night's festivities. Nothing worth mentioning. Had to escort Mr. Wilson home again. Man cannot hold his liquor worth a damn. You nod, making a mental note to suggest to Mr. Wilson's wife that she might want to keep a closer eye on her husband's whereabouts. Not that you would actually say anything. Discretion is another cornerstone of your business, but it is good to keep track of which customers might become problems. The saloon itself is fairly typical for a mining town. A long bar along one wall, scarred from years of bottles, glasses, and occasionally knives. A dozen small tables with mismatched chairs are scattered about. A small raised platform at the far end serves as a stage for the piano player, and occasionally a singer, if you can find one who will not rob you blind. The walls are decorated with faded prints of racehorses and hunting scenes, torn from Eastern magazines, plus a large cracked mirror behind the bar that makes the room look twice as big. It is not the house of mirrors in Denver, with its ceiling-to-floor looking glasses and velvet furniture, but it serves its purpose. Men do not come here for the decor anyway. A sharp knock at the back door pulls you from your thoughts. It is too early for customers. It must be the supply wagon with the weekly delivery of whiskey and beer. I will get it, you tell Thomas, heading toward the storeroom. It is not the supply wagon. Instead, you find yourself face to face with Sheriff Mills, his expression grim beneath his bushy mustache. Your heart sinks. This cannot be good news. Morning, Catherine, he says, removing his hat. At least he is being polite. That is something. Sheriff, what brings you by so early? Our usual arrangement is not due until Friday. The arrangement being the monthly payment that ensures the sheriff finds more important things to do than raid your establishment. Not about that, he replies. There has been some trouble over at Lily's place. Lily ran a smaller brothel on the edge of town, catered to minors mostly, the ones who could not afford your prices. What kind of trouble? You ask, already suspecting the answer. She is dead, stabbed, one of her girls too. A chill runs through you, despite the growing warmth of the morning. This business has always been dangerous, but murders are not common even in a rough town like this. Any idea who did it? The sheriff shakes his head, working on it. Just thought you should know. You might want to be extra careful for a while. You nod, your mind already racing through the implications. You will need to hire an extra man for security. Warn the girls to be especially watchful. Maybe raise prices temporarily to cover the additional expense. Thanks for letting me know, you say, reaching into your pocket and pulling out a silver dollar. Not a bribe exactly, just a token of appreciation for the warning. The sheriff pockets it without comment and replaces his hat. Take care, Catherine. After he leaves, you lean against the doorframe for a moment, letting the reality sink in. Lily is dead. You did not know her well. Competition keeps its distance, but she had been around for years, a fixture in town just like you. It is a stark reminder of the precarious position you occupy. For all the money you have made, for all your business acumen and careful planning, you are still just a madam in a town that tolerates your presence but would shed no tears at your passing. This is the reality that women like Maddie Silks, Jenny Rogers, and countless others faced every day. They built empires out of desire and lowliness, made fortunes where other women could not even find jobs, but they always existed on the edge of disaster. One angry customer, one jealous competitor, one moral crusade by the townspeople, and everything they had built could disappear overnight. Yet they persisted. They expanded their businesses, paid off local politicians, and added legitimacy to their trade however they could. Maddie Silks managed to acquire a liquor license in 1885, something nearly unheard of for a woman-owned business at the time. You straighten up and head back into the saloon. No time for dwelling on what might happen. There is business to attend to. You settle at a small desk in the corner to review last night's receipts. The numbers are good. Another month like this, and you can afford to replace the cracked window upstairs and maybe get that new piano you have been eyeing. Music brings in customers, and customers bring in money. The economics of running a brothel in the Wild West are straightforward but require careful management. Alcohol sales provide steady income. Special services bring in larger sums but are more irregular. Rooms can be rented by the hour or the night, depending on the customer's needs and wallet size. Everything has its price, clearly established and non-negotiable. As you tally figures in your ledger, you cannot help thinking about what Sheriff Mills said. Lily's death is a reminder of how quickly things can change in this business. You have been putting aside money for years now, hoping to eventually buy a small property somewhere quiet, somewhere no one knows your history. Most madams dream of retiring before age catches up with them. Few manage it. The famous Pearl Eve of Creek tried to maintain her business well into her 30s, throwing elaborate parties and charging astronomical sums for her company. She died of a morphine overdose in 1897 after one such celebration. Jenny Rogers ran her house at Mirrors into the early 1900s, but the life took its toll on her health and spirit. You look up from your calculations as the front door opens, letting in a shaft of bright morning sunlight. One of your girls, Sadi, enters carrying a basket of fresh bread from the bakery down the street. The smell hits you immediately, yeast and flour and warmth, momentarily overpowering the lingering odor of stale beer and tobacco. "Morning," she calls cheerfully. At 22, Sadi still has the energy and optimism that you sometimes envy. She has not been in the business long enough for it to wear her down yet. "Morning," you reply. "Any news from town?" Sadi sets the basket on the bar and begins unpacking the loaves. Mrs. Peterson at the bakery says her husband is thinking of running for mayor, and the Marshall boys got into another fight at the Silver Dollar last night. Oh, and the stage is running late today. Wheel trouble outside of Carson City. You nod, making a mental note about the delayed stage. Your new girl will be arriving late then. More time to prepare. Sadi continues chatting as she arranges the bread, sharing all the gossip she has picked up on her morning errand. This is another valuable service your girls provide: information. In a town where everyone has secrets, knowing who is doing what with whom is currency all its own. You let her talk while your mind drifts to the practicalities of the day ahead. There is the new girl to settle in, a delivery of proper French champagne supposedly arriving for your wealthier customers, and the monthly doctor's visit to arrange. You insist on regular health checks for all your employees, something not every madam bothers with. The life of a Wild West madam is part businesswoman, part mother figure, part warden. You manage personalities and profits with equal care. You settle disputes, nurse the sick, protect your girls from abusive customers, and still have to maintain the facade of gentle hospitality that keeps the money flowing. And despite all that work and all that risk, society would never acknowledge your contributions or success. The same townspeople who visit your establishment under cover of darkness would cross the street to avoid you in daylight. The businessmen who invested your money and profited from your success would never introduce you to their wives. You exist in a liminal space essential to the functioning of the community, but officially invisible. Yet the madams of the West were often among the wealthiest and most influential women of their time. They owned property when most women could not. They ran businesses when most women were limited to domestic work. They built fortunes when most women were financially dependent on men. As the morning stretches on, the saloon begins to come to life around you. The piano player arrives, his clothes rumpled from sleeping wherever he found space last night. More of your girls appear, some bright-eyed and ready for the day. Others are still fighting off sleep or the effects of last night's drinks. Thomas starts slicing the fresh bread for the simple lunch you offer. Bread, cheese, and occasionally stew if business has been good. You stretch, feeling the tightness in your shoulders, release just a bit, getting more comfortable in your chair as the warmth of the day starts to seep through the thin walls. Your body softens slightly, sinking deeper into the wooden seat. There is still so much to do, but for a moment, you allow yourself to relax, to breathe, to simply be. The rhythms of the day continue around you. As you settle deeper into this moment of quiet, you hear someone sweeping upstairs, the soft whisper of a broom against wooden floors. The smell of coffee brewing now joins the fresh bread. Your muscles release a little more tension as you adjust your position. That is it, nice and easy. Your breathing naturally slows as you watch the dust motes dancing in the beam of sunlight coming through the window. You feel yourself becoming more comfortable with each breath. In this rare moment of stillness, you observe the saloon slowly awakening. The girls move through their morning routines, a yawn escaping your lips as the warm spring air drifts through the open doorway, where the sheriff had been standing only moments ago. The moment of peace is broken by the sound of shattering glass upstairs, followed by cursing. You sigh. The life of a madam is never quiet for long. I will deal with it, you say to Thomas, who is already looking toward the ceiling with concern. The stairs creak under your boots as you climb back to the second floor. The noise came from Rose's room. She is one of your newer girls, barely 20, with a temper that flares hot and fast. Is everything all right in there? You call through the thin door. Fine, comes the sharp reply, followed by the sound of something else breaking. You do not bother knocking. As madam, every room in this establishment is yours to enter as needed. The door swings open to reveal Rose standing amid the shards of what used to be a porcelain wash basin. Her face is flushed, eyes bright with anger or tears or both. Want to tell me what that was about? You ask, careful to keep your voice neutral. You have learned that in this business, judgment only makes situations worse. Johnny Wilson promised to take me away from here, she says, her voice cracking. He said he was saving up to buy us a little place outside of town. Then I saw him this morning heading into the stagecoach office with Martha from the millinery shop. They had bags packed. You have heard this story before, different names, different details, but always the same ending. Some customer makes promises to a girl, fills her head with dreams of respectability and escape, then disappears. Sometimes they just leave town. Sometimes they show up again next payday, pretending the promises were never made. That basin is coming out of your earnings, you say, because business is business, but your tone is gentler than your words. Get cleaned up and come downstairs for some breakfast. I have got a new dress that might fit you. Green silk would look good with your hair. It is a small kindness, but in this world, small kindnesses are sometimes all you can offer. Rose nods, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. Back downstairs, you find more of your girls have emerged from their rooms. Lucy, the oldest at 29, is helping Thomas slice bread. Mary and Beth, sisters who came west after their parents died in a factory fire back east, are sweeping the floor and arranging chairs. Everyone has a job to do before the customers arrive later. This is how the better brothels operate like well-managed households. The women are not just there for the customer's pleasure. They maintain the establishment, prepare food, keep the place clean and orderly. Some madams insist their girls learn to read and write, to speak properly, to discuss current events. The more accomplished the girls, the higher the prices that can be charged. Jenny Rogers was famous for being selective about her soiled doughs. She chose only the most attractive, well-mannered young women for her house of mirrors. She clothed them elegantly, housed them in luxurious surroundings, and charged accordingly. Her establishment became known as one of the finest brothels in the West, attracting wealthy businessmen, politicians, and visitors who wanted more than just a quick transaction. Your place is not quite that fancy, but you have standards. Your girls do not work if they are sick or injured. They get regular medical examinations. You do not allow excessive drinking while they are working, and you keep a close eye on customers who might become violent. Not every madam is so careful, but you learned early that healthy, content employees are good for business. A knock at the front door interrupts your thoughts. It is still too early for regular customers. I will get it, Lucy says, wiping her hands on her apron before crossing to the door. She returns a moment later with a young woman who looks like she has not slept in days. Her dress, once good quality, is travel-stained and crumpled. She clutches a small carpet bag with white-knuckled hands. She is looking for work, Lucy explains, giving you a quick up-and-down assessment of the newcomer with her eyes. I am Catherine, you say, extending your hand. I run this establishment. Emily, the young woman, replies, her voice barely above a whisper. Her handshake is limp and uncertain. Emily Mitchell. Well, Emily Mitchell, you look like you could use a hot meal and a wash before we discuss anything else. Lucy, show her to the back room and find her something clean to wear. As Lucy leads the nervous young woman away, you wonder what her story is. Most girls do not choose this life as their first option. They come to it through necessity, desperation, or lack of alternatives. Some are widows with no means of support. Some have been abandoned by husbands or lovers. Some are running from abusive homes. Some were introduced to the trade by mothers or sisters already in it. In the harsh reality of the American frontier, women have few options for independence. They could marry, teach school if educated enough, work as maids or laundresses for pitiful wages, or enter the sporting life. For a woman alone in the world, especially one without family or connections, the choice often is not much of a choice at all. An hour later, Emily sits across from you at one of the saloon tables, now dressed in a borrowed dress of Lucy's that is too large for her slight frame. She has eaten a bowl of stew and half a loaf of bread like someone who has not seen a proper meal in days. Some color has returned to her pale cheeks, so you say, pouring her a cup of coffee from the pot Thomas has brought over. Tell me what brings you here. Her story spills out in fits and starts. She was a governess for a wealthy family in San Francisco. The master of the house made advances. When she rejected him, he accused her of stealing a silver hairbrush. His wife believed him. Emily fled before the police could be called, with only what she could carry and the money she had managed to save. I tried to find proper work, she says, staring into her coffee cup, but without references. You nod. It is a common enough tale. Society offers women few protections and even fewer second chances. Have you done this kind of work before? You ask directly. There is no point in dancing around the subject. She shakes her head, a flush rising from her neck to her cheeks. No, ma'am. Then why come here? This is not an ordinary boarding house. Emily raises her eyes to meet yours, and you see something there beyond desperation determination. Because I heard you run a clean place, she says, that you treat your employees fairly, and because I have nowhere else to go. You consider her for a long moment. Taking on an inexperienced girl means time spent training, potential awkwardness with customers, possible drama when the reality of the work sets in. But something about her steady gaze, despite her circumstances, intrigues you. We will try a week, you decide. You will start by helping with the cleaning and serving drinks. If that goes well, we will discuss the rest. Lucy will show you the ropes. You will get room and board, plus 10% of what you make after the first month. If you are still here, that goes up to 20%. It is a fair offer, better than many madams would make, but still heavily weighted in your favor. This is a business after all, not a charity. Emily nods, relief washing over her features. Thank you. I will not disappoint you. See that you do not, you reply, rising from the table. Lucy will show you where you will sleep. As Lucy leads Emily upstairs, Thomas approaches with a folded piece of paper. "Message came while you were talking," he says, handing it to you. The note is brief, written in the flowing script of Madame Rosalie, who runs the most expensive brothel in town. She is summoning the town's madams to a meeting tonight at her place. Unusual, but given what happened to Lily, not unexpected. The madams of a town, while competitors, often maintained a wary alliance. They set prices together to prevent undercutting. They warned each other about violent customers. They sometimes shared the cost of bribing officials or hiring protection. Like any business leaders, they recognized that some forms of cooperation benefited everyone. The famous madams of Denver, Mattie Silks, Jenny Rogers, and others, were known to collaborate when necessary, even as they competed fiercely for customers and prestige. When the city council tried to shame them by requiring prostitutes to wear yellow ribbons, they turned the ordinance on its head by dressing entirely in yellow, from head to toe, creating a spectacle that eventually forced the council to rescind the order. You fold the note and tuck it into your pocket. The meeting will mean leaving the saloon during evening hours. Not ideal, but necessary. You will have Thomas watch things while you are gone. The day progresses with the usual tasks. You review supplies with Thomas, making note of what needs ordering. You settle a minor dispute between Mary and Beth over a borrowed hairpin that escalated into accusations about a stolen customer. You review the books again, considering whether it is time to raise prices. The new mining operation that opened north of town has brought in workers with money to spend. By late afternoon, the saloon is ready for business. The floors have been swept, the spittoons emptied and cleaned, the bar stocked. Fresh sawdust has been scattered across the floor to absorb spills and make cleanup easier tomorrow. The piano has been tuned as best as your regular player can manage with his limited skills. The girls are dressing for the evening, transforming from the practical women who cleaned and cooked all day into the fantasy figures who will entertain tonight. Corsets tighten to create exaggerated hourglass figures, hair arranged in elaborate curls and waves, rouge applied to cheeks and lips, perhaps a bit of powder to hide blemishes or signs of fatigue. You retreat to your own room to change as well. The practical business clothes of the day are replaced by a gown of deep burgundy satin, still elegant despite being several years out of fashion. A gold locket hangs at your throat, a gift from a customer years ago who had more money than sense. Your hair, showing threads of gray now, is pinned up in a style that suggests sophistication without trying too hard for youth. The transformation is not just physical. As you dress, you feel yourself becoming a persona your customers expect worldly, slightly detached, with a seen-it-all air that somehow remains approachable. Being a madam is a performance as much as it is a business position. By the time you return downstairs, the first customers are already arriving miners mostly, their faces still bearing the grime of the day's work despite attempts to wash up. They order whiskey at the bar, their eyes roving over the girls who have positioned themselves strategically around the room. You make your rounds, greeting regulars by name, introducing yourself to newcomers. Your manner is warm but reserved. You are friendly but not familiar. You laugh at their jokes but maintain a certain distance. This careful balance is part of your role, accessible enough to make them comfortable spending money, remote enough to command respect. The evening proceeds as most do. Drinks flow. The piano player pounds out popular tunes, occasionally joined by Rose, who has a surprisingly sweet singing voice when she is not breaking basins. Men pay for dances with the girls, which sometimes lead to more private transactions upstairs. You oversee it all with a practiced eye, intervening only when necessary to maintain order. At 9 o'clock, you catch Lucy's attention and signal that you are leaving for your meeting. She nods, understanding that she is in charge until you return. Lucy has been with you longest and knows the business almost as well as you do. If you ever decided to retire, she would be the one you would consider selling to. The night air is cool as you step outside, a welcome relief from the heat and smoke of the saloon. The streets are quieter now. Most respectable businesses have closed for the evening. A few men loiter outside the other saloons in town. A dog barks somewhere in the distance. Madame Rosalie's establishment sits at the north end of town, a large two-story house painted white with green shutters, designed to look like a respectable residence. Only the red lantern hanging discreetly by the door indicates its true purpose. You are admitted by a doorman dressed like a butler, who leads you to a parlor at the back of the house. The room is elegantly furnished with velvet couches, oriental rugs, and oil paintings in gilt frames. Crystal decanters of liquor sit on a sideboard along with delicate glasses. 3 women are already present. Madame Rosalie herself, a French woman, or at least she claims to be French. No one has ever verified this. She is in her 40s, dressed in midnight blue silk. Harriet Brown, who runs a small place catering exclusively to the town's Chinese population, and Sarah Jenkins, whose establishment sits on the opposite end of town from yours, serving mainly cowboys and cattlemen passing through. Greetings are exchanged with formal politeness. Drinks are poured. Only when everyone is settled does Madame Rosalie address the reason for the gathering. "I assume you have all heard about Lily," she says, her accent thickening as it always does when she is concerned. Everyone nods. News travels fast in a small town, especially news like that. The sheriff has no suspects, Sarah adds. "I spoke with him this afternoon. We need to take precautions," Madame Rosalie continues. "Hire extra security, perhaps close earlier for a while, and raise our prices to cover the extra expense," Harriet suggests practically. The discussion continues in this vein for some time. Practical considerations, business decisions. No one mentions the fear that underlies the conversation, that what happened to Lily could happen to any of them. Despite the wealth they accumulated, despite the power they wielded in their own domains, madams existed in a precarious position. They operated outside the protection of the law while simultaneously being subject to its penalties. They were essential to their communities, yet scorned by polite society. They were entrepreneurs in an era when women were not supposed to have business acumen. Many, like Jenny Rogers and Maddie Silks, tried to gain respectability through charitable works. They donated to churches, orphanages, and hospitals. They bought clothes and school supplies for poor children. They contributed to civic improvements, but acceptance remained elusive. The money was welcomed. The women themselves were not. The meeting concludes with agreements about new security measures and a pact to share information about any suspicious customers. As you prepare to leave, Madame Rosalie draws you aside. "Catherine, a word," she says, guiding you to a quiet corner. "What is it?" you ask, noting the concern in her eyes. "I heard a rumor that Lily had been keeping a book names, dates, special requests, the sort of information that could ruin a man's reputation. You feel a chill that has nothing to do with the evening air. You think that is why she was killed." Madame Rosalie shrugs elegantly. "I think it would be wise for all of us to be careful about what we know, and who knows we know it." The warning sits heavily as you make your way back through the quiet streets to your own establishment. Madams often accumulated secrets as valuable as currency. Jenny Rogers once blackmailed a local politician by threatening to expose him as a frequent customer, earning herself $17,000 in the process, a fortune at the time. But such knowledge could be dangerous as well as profitable. The saloon is still busy when you return, though the crowd is thinned somewhat. Thomas catches your eye from behind the bar, a slight shake of his head indicating that nothing requiring your attention has occurred in your absence. You make another round of the room, checking on your girls, assessing the mood of the customers. Everything seems to be running smoothly. Emily is serving drinks, her nervousness from earlier replaced by a careful attentiveness. Should do well, you think, if she can maintain that balance of availability and reserve. As midnight approaches, the pace of the evening slows. Some customers have gone upstairs with your girls, Others have drifted home or to their camp beds at the mine. A few diehards remain at the bar nursing their drinks and sharing increasingly exaggerated stories. You find yourself at your small desk again, tallying the night's earnings while keeping one eye on the room. The meeting with the other madams has left you thoughtful, considering your own position and future. Most madams didn't have happy endings. For all her success, Maddie Silks fell for a man named Cortez Thompson, who treated her poorly and lived off her earnings. Pearl Dvere died of an overdose. Others succumbed to alcoholism, disease, or violence. Few managed to translate their financial success into the respectability they sought. You have been luckier than most. You've saved carefully, invested where you could, and avoided the pitfalls of addiction that claimed many in your profession. You're not rich, but you have enough set aside that retirement isn't an impossible dream. A small house somewhere quiet, perhaps a garden, books to read, no one knowing or caring about your past. The fantasy is pleasant enough that you allow yourself to linger on it. Your pen pauses in its tabulation of figures. Your shoulders, tense from the day's concerns and the evening's warning, begin to relax slightly. You roll your head gently, feeling the small pops as your neck releases its tightness. From the piano comes a slow, soothing melody. Your player has switched from lively dance tunes to something more appropriate for the waning hours. The rhythm matches your breathing, which has slowed without your noticing. Your body feels heavier, more settled in your chair. The familiar sounds of the saloon murmured conversations, the clink of glasses, occasional laughter create a comfortable backdrop as you continue your work. The ledger's columns of neat figures provide their own kind of satisfaction order imposed on the chaos of life. Your hand moves smoothly across the page, the scratch of pen on paper joining the ambient noise of the room. You stifle a yawn, stretching your arms above your head before settling back into a more comfortable position. The burgundy satin of your dress rustles softly with the movement. You feel your muscles releasing their tension, your breathing deepening naturally as you continue reviewing the night's transactions. That's it, nice and easy. The night's nearly done. Most of your girls are settled with customers, and tomorrow you'll need to help Emily adjust to her new life here, the reality of your world slowly sinking in. You notice the piano player has switched to an even gentler tune, something that reminds you of rainfall on a tin roof. Morning comes too soon. Sunlight slants through the gaps in your curtains to land directly across your eyes. You groan, rolling away from the brightness. Your head pounds slightly, not from drink. You're too careful for that, but from the late hour you've finally retired. The thin mattress creaks as you sit up, your body protesting every movement. Running a brothel is physically demanding work, despite what most folks might think. You're on your feet most of the day and night, constantly moving between the saloon, the girls' rooms, your office, and wherever else needs your attention. The floor is cold beneath your bare feet as you make your way to the wash basin. The water from last night has gone completely cold, but you splash your face anyway. The shock of it helps clear away the cobwebs of sleep. Outside your window, the town is already coming to life. You can hear the blacksmith's hammer ringing from down the street. A wagon rattles by, wheels clattering against the uneven ground. Someone is shouting about fresh milk for sale. You dress quickly in a simple navy skirt and white blouse, no need for the fancy clothes until evening. Your hair is twisted into a simple knot at the nape of your neck. A splash of rose water behind your ears. Not the heavy perfume of night, but something lighter, cleaner. Downstairs, you find Thomas already at work, sweeping up last night's sawdust and debris. Lucy is at the stove in the small kitchen behind the bar, stirring a pot of what smells like oatmeal. "Morning," she says without looking up from her task. "Coffee's ready." You pour yourself a cup, savoring the bitter warmth. Coffee is one luxury you never skimp on, even in the worst financial times. You make sure to buy good beans. It's a small pleasure in a life that offers few refined enjoyments. "How's our new girl?" you ask, leaning against the doorframe. Lucy shrugs. "Still sleeping. She worked hard last night. Quick learner. Good. When she wakes up, send her to me. I want to go over the rules again." Every madam had her own set of rules for her establishment. These weren't just about business practices, but about survival in a dangerous profession. Rules like never go with a customer who's too drunk, don't leave the building with a customer unless cleared by the madam first, no stealing from customers or other girls, and no fighting on the premises. The famous Jenny Rogers had particularly strict rules for her house of mirrors. Her girls were not allowed to drink excessively. They had to maintain a certain standard of dress and behavior at all times. They could not argue with customers, no matter how difficult. Breaking these rules meant immediate dismissal, often without the wages owed. Such strictness might seem harsh, but it was necessary. A brothel was judged by the behavior of its women. A place where the girls were drunk, slovenly, or argumentative wouldn't attract the high-paying customers that made the business profitable. You're halfway through your coffee when there's a sharp knock at the front door. Thomas looks to you questioningly. "I'll get it," you say, setting down your cup. When you open the door, you find a young man in a crisp deputy's uniform. His badge is still shiny enough to suggest it's relatively new. "Mom," he says, touching the brim of his hat politely. "Sheriff sent me to update you on the situation with Lily." You step back, allowing him to enter. "Any news?" "They caught the fellow who did it," the deputy says, looking uncomfortable in the saloon, despite its emptiness. Drummer passing through town had blood on his clothes and Lily's brooch in his pocket. Did he say why? The deputy shifts his weight. Said she laughed at him when he couldn't perform. You nod, unsurprised. Male pride is a dangerous thing, especially when wounded. You've seen violence erupt over less in your years running the saloon. The sheriff wanted all you ladies to know it's handled, the deputy continues. No need for extra worry. Thank the sheriff for the information, you reply formally. Will there be a trial? The young man looks even more uncomfortable. No, ma'am. He tried to escape custody this morning. Sheriff had to shoot, which means the sheriff or one of his men took care of the problem permanently, saving the town the expense and trouble of a trial for the murder of a prostitute. You're not shocked. In frontier justice, some lives counted more than others. After the deputy leaves, you share the news with Lucy and Thomas. There's a momentary silence as you all absorb the implications. Should I tell the girls when they wake up? Lucy asks. You consider this. Yes, but keep it simple. Man responsible is dead. No need for details. That'll just upset everyone. The morning progresses with its usual routines. Girls emerge from their rooms one by one, some alone, some with customers from the night, before who sheepishly make their way out the back door. The air fills with the domestic sounds of women living in close quarters complaints about borrowed items not returned. Arguments over whose turn it is to help with breakfast, gossip about customers and each other. Emily appears last, her borrowed dress wrinkled from sleep. She looks better than yesterday, less desperate, more composed. Her eyes find you across the room, and she makes her way over. Madame Catherine, she says formally. Lucy said you wanted to see me. Yes, you reply, gesturing to a table in the corner where you can have some privacy. Sit down. She obeys instantly, folding her hands in her lap. The governess training shows in her posture straight-backed, shoulders square. You did well last night. You begin. Thomas says you're quick and careful with the drinks. No spills, no mistakes in the orders. Thank you, she says, a faint blush coloring her cheeks at the praise. I'm grateful for the opportunity. Today, we'll need to discuss what comes next. You continue serving drinks. It's fine to start there, but it won't earn you much. Most of our profit comes from other services. Emily's blush deepens, but she meets your gaze steadily. I understand, do you? This isn't a decision to make lightly. Once you start down this road, it's hard to turn back. Society doesn't offer second chances to women in our profession. It's a harsh truth, but one she needs to hear. Many girls enter the trade thinking it as temporary, just until they save enough to start over somewhere else. Some manage it. Most don't. The stigma follows them, especially in small towns where everyone knows everyone's business. Emily is silent for a long moment, her eyes dropping to her hands. What are my alternatives? She finally asks. You could try for a position as a maid or a dressmaker, you suggest. Pays poorly, and the work's harder than what you do here, but it's respectable. Would anyone hire me now that I've spent a night under your roof? Her voice is quiet, but not accusatory. You don't insult her intelligence with false reassurance. Probably not in this town. You'd need to move on with whatever money you have. She looks up again, and you see that same determination you noticed yesterday. I have exactly 23 cents to my name. Not enough for a stagecoach ticket, let alone establishing myself somewhere new. It's the predicament so many women faced on the frontier. Without money or family support, options narrow quickly. The line between respectability and ruin is thin and easily crossed. I know what I'm choosing, Emily says, her voice firmer now. I've thought about it all night. I don't see another way forward from where I am. You nod, respecting her clear-eyed assessment of her situation. All right then, Lucy will help you get ready. You'll need different clothes for evening work. I'll advance you enough for a proper dress and shoes. It comes out of your first earnings, of course. Of course, she agrees. One more thing, you add as she starts to rise. Whatever brought you here, whatever you do while you're here, never be ashamed. We provide a service that men seek out willingly. There's no shame in meeting a demand, no matter what the church ladies might say. It's the same advice Maddie Silks reportedly gave to her new girls. Pride was essential armor in this business. Without it, the judgment and scorn of society could crush a woman's spirit entirely. Emily nods, a small smile touching her lips. Yes, Mom, she says as she walks away to find Lucy. You can't help wondering how long she'll last. Some girls adapt quickly to the life, finding it preferable to the backbreaking work of laundering or the demeaning position of domestic service. Others never reconcile themselves to it, turning to drink or drugs to numb their feelings until they no longer suitable for the better establishments. They end up in the crib's tiny cubicles, where the cheapest prostitutes ply their trade or dead from disease, overdose, or violence. You hope Emily will be one of the survivors like Maddie, Silks, or Jenny Rogers, who parlayed their beauty and business sense into financial security. But you realistic enough to know not everyone has that combination of qualities needed to thrive in this harsh world. The day continues with its usual tasks and small dramas. Rose is still sulking over Johnny Wilson's betrayal, but has stopped breaking things, at least. Mary and Beth have reconciled over the hairpin dispute and are now united in criticizing another girl's choice of evening gown. Thomas reports that you running low on whiskey and will need to place an order with the supplier around midday. A visitor arrives, Dr. Harrison, making his monthly rounds to check on the health of your girls. He's an older man now, his hair more salt than pepper, with a permanently stern expression that softens only slightly when addressing you directly. Catherine, he greets you with a nod. The usual examinations, I presume? Yes, plus we have a new girl who should be checked as well, you reply, leading him to the small back room that serves as her office, and on days like this, an examination room. Dr. Harrison is unusual among frontier physicians in his willingness to treat prostitutes at all, let alone make regular preventative visits. Most doctors would only attend to fallen women in emergencies, and often charged exorbitant rates for doing so. But Harrison is a practical man. He understands that disease doesn't respect moral boundaries, that infections spread from brothel, to respectable homes by the husbands and sons who frequent establishments like yours. His monthly visits are as much about protecting the wider community as they are about caring for your girls. The examinations are brief, but thorough. Each girl is checked for signs of venereal disease, which would render her unable to work until treated and cleared. Any other health concerns are addressed as well. Persistent coughs that might indicate tuberculosis, unusual bleeding, signs of pregnancy. When it's Emily's turn, you see her hesitation as she approaches the door to your office. This is often the moment when new girls reconsider their decision, when the clinical reality of the profession hits home. It's necessary, you tell her quietly, for your protection and ours. The doctor is discreet and professional. She nods and enters the room, her back straight as ever. When she emerges 15 minutes later, her face is flushed but composed. All clear, Dr. Harrison announces after the last examination. New girl remarkably healthy. No signs of previous activity as she claimed. You pay his fee higher than what he charges respectable households, but fair considering the risk to his reputation, and see him out through the back door. It wouldn't he do for his regular patients to know he visits your establishment, even in a professional capacity. As afternoon stretches toward evening, the pace of activity in the saloon increases. Girls who've been mending clothes or writing letters to family, always with fictitious details about their employment, begin preparing for the night ahead. Thomas stocks the bar and makes sure the spittoons are empty and cleaned. The piano player arrives, slightly less rumpled than yesterday, and begins warming up with scales and simple tunes. You retreat to your room to change into your evening attire, a gown of deep green velvet tonight, slightly out of fashion, but still impressive with its tight bodice and flowing skirt. A different piece of jewelry, pearl earrings that were payment from a customer who ran short of cash one night. Your hair is arranged more elaborately, with combs holding the gray strands in a style that suggests elegance without trying too hard for youth. When you return downstairs, you find Emily transformed as well. Lucy has found her a dress of pale blue silk, slightly worn at the seams, but still pretty. Her hair has been curled and pinned up, with a few strategic tendrils left to frame her face. Rouge has been applied to her cheeks and lips, darkening their natural color just enough to be noticeable in the dim evening light of the saloon. "Will I do?" she asks, turning slowly for your inspection. "You'll do," you confirm, noting with approval that Lucy has chosen a color that complements Emily's fair coloring and a style that makes the most of her slender figure. Matters in this business. As the evening begins and customers start to arrive, you watch Emily carefully. Her first night as more than just a drink server will set the tone for her time in your establishment. She seems nervous, but determined, laughing at the right moments, accepting drinks bought for her, though you notice she's barely sipping them. Smart girl, allowing men to lead her in clumsy dances to the piano's music. Around 9, you see her speaking intently with a middle-aged man dressed in the clothes of a store clerk or minor businessman. "Sit down." She obeys, instantly folding her hands in her lap. The governess training shows in her posture, straight-backed, shoulders square. "You did well last night," you begin. "Thomas says you are quick and careful with the drinks. No spills, no mistakes in the orders." "Thank you," she says, a faint blush coloring her cheeks at the praise. "I am grateful for the opportunity. Today we will need to discuss what comes next," you continue. "Serving drinks is fine to start, but it will not earn you much. Most of our profit comes from other services." Emily's blush deepens, but she meets your gaze steadily. "I understand." "Do you?" This is not a decision to make lightly. Once you start down this road, it is hard to turn back. Society does not offer second chances to women in our profession. It is a harsh truth, but one she needs to hear. Many girls enter the trade thinking it is temporary, just until they save enough to start over somewhere else. Some manage it. Most do not. The stigma follows them, especially in small towns where everyone knows everyone's business. Emily is silent for a long moment, her eyes dropping to her hands. "What are my alternatives?" she finally asks. "You could try for a position as a maid or dressmaker," you suggest. "It pays poorly and the work is harder than what you do here. But it is respectable. And would anyone hire me now that I have spent a night under your roof?" Her voice is quiet, but not accusatory. "In this town, you would need to move on. With what money?" She looks up again, and you see that same determination you noticed yesterday. "I have exactly 23 cents to my name. Not enough for a stagecoach ticket, let alone establishing myself somewhere new. It is the predicament so many women faced on the frontier. Without money or family support, options narrowed quickly. The line between respectability and ruin was thin and easily crossed. I know what I am choosing," Emily says, her voice firmer now. "I have thought about it all night. I do not see another way forward from where I am." You nod, respecting her clear-eyed assessment of her situation. "All right then. Lucy will help you get ready. You will need different clothes for evening work. I will advance you enough for a proper dress and shoes. It comes out of your first earnings, of course." "Of course," she agrees. "One more thing," you add as she starts to rise. "Whatever brought you here, whatever you do while you are here, never be ashamed. We provide a service that men seek out willingly. There is no shame in meeting a demand, no matter what the church ladies might say." It is the same advice Maddie Silks reportedly gave to her new girls. Pride was essential armor in this business. Without it, the judgment and scorn of society could crush a woman's spirit entirely. Emily nods, a small smile touching her lips. "Yes, Mom." As she walks away to find Lucy, you cannot help wondering how long she will last. Some girls adapt quickly to the life, finding it preferable to the back-breaking work of laundering or the demeaning position of domestic service. Others never reconcile themselves to it, turning to drink or drugs to numb their feelings until they are no longer suitable for the better establishments. They end up in the crib's tiny cubicles, where the cheapest prostitutes plied their trade, or dead from disease, overdose, or violence. You hope Emily will be one of the survivors, like Maddie Silks or Jenny Rogers, who parlayed their beauty and business sense into financial security. But you are realistic enough to know not everyone has that combination of qualities needed to thrive in this harsh world. The day continues with its usual tasks and small dramas. Rose is still sulking over Johnny Wilson's betrayal, but has stopped breaking things at least. Mary and Beth have reconciled over the hairpin dispute and are now united in criticizing another girl as choice of evening gown. Thomas reports that you are running low on whiskey and will need to place an order with the supplier. Around midday, a visitor arrives, Dr. Harrison, making his monthly rounds to check on the health of your girls. He is an older man, his hair more salt than pepper now, with a permanently stern expression that softens only slightly when addressing you directly. "Catherine," he greets you with a nod. "The usual examinations, I presume?" "Yes, plus we have a new girl who should be checked as well," you reply, leading him to the small back room that serves as your office, and on days like this, an examination room. Dr. Harrison is unusual among frontier physicians in his willingness to treat prostitutes at all, let alone make regular preventative visits. Most doctors would only attend to fallen women in emergencies, and often charged exorbitant rates for doing so. But Harrison is a practical man. He understands that disease does not respect moral boundaries, that infections spread from raffle to respectable homes via the husbands and sons who frequent establishments like yours. His monthly visits are as much about protecting the wider community as they are about caring for your girls. The examinations are brief, but thorough. Each girl is checked for signs of venereal disease, which would render her unable to work until treated and cleared. Any other health concerns are addressed as well persistent coughs, that might indicate tuberculosis, unusual bleeding, signs of pregnancy. When it is Emily's turn, you see her hesitation as she approaches the door to your office. This is often the moment when new girls reconsider their decision, when the clinical reality of the profession hits home. It is necessary, you tell her quietly, for your protection and ours. The doctor is discreet and professional. She nods and enters the room, her back straight as ever. When she emerges 15 minutes later, her face is flushed but composed. All clear, Dr. Harrison announces after the last examination. That new girl remarkably healthy. No signs of previous activity, has she claimed. You pay his fee higher than what he charges respectable households, but fair considering the risk to his reputation, and see him out through the back door. It would not do for his regular patients to know he visits your establishment, even in a professional capacity. As afternoon stretches toward evening, the pace of activity in the saloon increases. Girls who have been mending clothes or writing letters to family, always with fictitious details about their employment, begin preparing for the night ahead. Thomas stocks the bar and makes sure the spittoons are empty and cleaned. The piano player arrives, slightly less rumpled than yesterday, and begins warming up with scales and simple tunes. You retreat to your room to change into your evening attire, a gown of deep green velvet tonight, slightly out of fashion, but still impressive with its tight bodice and flowing skirt. A different piece of jewelry, pearl earrings. They were payment from a customer who ran short of cash one night. Your hair is arranged more elaborately, with combs holding the gray strands in a style that suggests elegance without trying too hard for youth. When you return downstairs, you find Emily transformed as well. Lucy has found her a dress of pale blue silk, slightly worn at the seams, but still pretty. Her hair has been curled and pinned up, with a few strategic tendrils left to frame her face. Rouge has been applied to her cheeks and lips, darkening their natural color just enough to be noticeable in the dim evening light of the saloon. "Will I do?" she asks, turning slowly for your inspection. "You will do," you confirm, noting with approval that Lucy has chosen a color that complements Emily, has fair coloring and a style that makes the most of her slender figure. Details like that matter in this business. Assuring him you can handle the final lockup, the girls have all retired to their rooms, some alone, some with customers who have paid for the whole night. The saloon is quiet, except for the occasional creak of the building settling. As you make your final rounds, checking that doors are locked and lamps extinguished, you find Emily sitting alone at the bar, a barely touched glass of whiskey in front of her. "Long day," you comment, sliding onto the stool beside her. She nods, staring into her drink. "Is it always like this?" "Like what?" She gestures vaguely. "Intense. That man tonight. The way you handled him." You consider her question, wanting to be honest without scaring her further. "Not every day, but often enough that you need to be prepared." She takes a small sip of whiskey, grimacing at the taste. "I thought I understood what I was getting into, but I did not, did I?" "Few do at the start," you admit. "It is not an easy life, but it is not all bad either." "What is the good part?" she asks, looking at you directly now. You think about this. Independence. More money than most women ever see. A kind of freedom that respectable women do not have. And you add with a small smile, the friendships. The women here, they become like family. Emily nods slowly, absorbing this. "I think I would like that. Family. Get some sleep," you tell her, patting her hand. "Tomorrow will be easier." As she heads upstairs, you finish the last of your closing tasks. The night's earnings are safely locked away in your office. The bar is wiped clean. The piano is covered to protect it from dust. Finally, you make your way to your own room, your body crying out for rest. You remove your finery with slow, tired movements, hanging the green velvet gown carefully to prevent wrinkles. The pearl earrings go into a small jewelry box on your dresser. Your hair is unpinned, falling in a gray stream down your back. In your simple cotton nightgown, with your face scrubbed clean of rouge and powder, you look your age. The fine lines around your eyes and mouth are visible now, telling the story of years spent in smoky rooms, managing difficult situations, building a business in a world that never wanted to acknowledge women like you as businesswomen at all. You settle onto your narrow bed, feeling the familiar lumps of the mattress beneath you. Your body gradually relaxes into the thin padding, finding the comfortable spots worn into shape by years of sleep. The sounds of the night drift through your window, a distant dog barking, the occasional voice of someone making their way home late, the soft rustle of wind through the cottonwood trees that line the main street. Your thoughts drift to the events of the day, Emily's first real night of work, a confrontation with the scarred man, the news about Lily's killer. So much happens in this small world you have created, this microcosm of the larger frontier society with all its dangers and opportunities. Your breathing slows as you settle deeper into the mattress. The weight of the day's responsibilities begins to lift from your shoulders. Your muscles, tense from hours of vigilance, gradually unwind. A yawn escapes as your body recognizes it is finally time to rest. Morning comes with the sound of hammering from somewhere down the street. You groan, rolling over to bury your face in the thin pillow. It does not help. The noise continues insistent and rhythmic. Giving up on further sleep, you push yourself into a sitting position. Your body aches in familiar ways, feet sore from hours in uncomfortable boots, back tight from maintaining perfect posture, head slightly fuzzy from the small amounts of alcohol you consumed while entertaining customers. The hammering continues. Must be the new storefront going in where the old mercantile burned down last month. Progress, they call it. To you, it is just another unwelcome noise in a town that never seems to truly quiet. You make your way through your morning routine mechanically. Cold water splashed to the face, teeth cleaned with baking soda, hair brushed and pinned, plain day clothes donned. No need for the artifice of evening yet. That transformation will come later. Downstairs, you find Thomas already at work, restocking the bar with the bottles he brought up from the cellar. No sign of any of the girls yet. They will sleep late after last night's work. Even Lucy, usually an early riser, has not emerged. Morning. Thomas greets you, his voice low out of habit. The walls are thin, and loud noises travel easily to the rooms above. Coffee is hot. You pour yourself a cup, savoring the bitter warmth. Any word from our whiskey supplier? Shipment should arrive on tomorrow's stage, he confirms. Paid extra for quick delivery. You nod approval. Running out of whiskey would be disastrous for business. Men came to establishments like yours for many reasons, but alcohol was always near the top of the list. Did we have any trouble after I turned in? You ask, sipping your coffee. Thomas shakes his head. Quiet night. That fellow who wanted Emily did not come back. Relief washes through you. You had half expected the scarred man to return with reinforcements, or a drunken determination to prove his dominance. The fact that he moved on to easier targets is a small blessing. As you settle at your desk to review yesterday's accounts, the front door opens. It is too early for customers, and your girls know to use the back entrance during daylight hours to maintain some semblance of discretion. Sheriff Mills steps inside, removing his hat as his eyes adjust to the dimmer interior. His expression is unreadable, but there is a tension in his shoulders that immediately puts you on alert. Catherine, he says with a nod. Need a word. You gesture to the chair across from your desk. What can I do for you, Sheriff? He sits, placing his hat on his knee. Had some trouble last night over at the Broken Spoke. The Broken Spoke, the establishment you directed the scarred man and his companions toward. Your stomach tightens. What kind of trouble? You ask, though you can already guess. Man dead, stabbed, the sheriff's eyes fix on yours. Fellow with a scar along his jaw. Despite your dislike of the man, the news sends a chill through you. I am sorry to hear that. I am sure, Mills says dryly. Word is you sent him and his boys over there after refusing to serve them. There is no accusation in his voice, just a statement of fact, but you feel defensive nonetheless. They were looking for trouble specifically. They were looking to trouble one of my new girls, who was not interested. I suggested they might find more willing company elsewhere. The sheriff nods slowly. That is about what I figured. Do not worry, you are not in any hot water. Just trying to piece together his movements last night. Do you know who killed him? One of Bessie's girls, looks like. Claims self-defense. Says he got rough. Would not take no for an answer. Bessie ran the Broken Spoke with minimal oversight and even less concern for her employees' well-being. Her girls were often desperate women with few other options older, addicted to something, or otherwise unable to secure positions in the better houses. Will there be a trial? You ask, though you suspect you already know the answer. Sheriff Mills shrugs. Doubt it. Nobody is too broken up about a stranger causing trouble, and Bessie has already paid the fine for disturbance of the peace. That was how justice often worked in frontier towns. A man's death might warrant investigation, but if the deceased was a troublemaker with no local connections, and especially if he had been killed by a prostitute defending herself, the matter was usually settled with a fine and perhaps compensation to the brothel owner for lost business. Anything else you need from me? You ask, eager to move the conversation along. Association with a death, even peripherally, was bad for business. Just wanted to let you know, Mills says, rising, and to suggest you might want to be careful about who you turn away. Sometimes it is safer to handle trouble in your own place than to pass it along. The advice rankles that you keep your expression neutral. I will keep that in mind. After he leaves, you sit in silence for a moment, processing. The scarred man is dead, killed by one of Bessie's girls when he got violent. It could just as easily have happened here to Emily or any of your other women. The dangers of the profession were ever present, not just from disease or social ostracism, but from the very customers who provided your livelihood. Women in the trade faced violence regularly, from men who felt entitled to more than they had paid for, from those who resented paying at all, from those who simply enjoyed inflicting pain. Madams like Mattie Silks and Jenny Rogers employed male bouncers. You nod again, appreciating both the advice and the warning woven into the sheriff's words. We'll be ready, you reply. With that, Sheriff Mills tips his hat once more and exits through the back door, his boots echoing briefly down the alley before fading into the sounds of the waking town. The girls begin to disperse, some heading upstairs to their proper beds for a few precious hours of real sleep, others lingering with coffee or soft conversation, the tension of the past day slowly unwinding into the warm hush of morning. Emily lingers at the table, still quiet, still watching. You catch her gaze and offer a small nod approval, reassurance, solidarity. She returns it, her expression unreadable but steady. You finish your coffee in silence, staring out at the now calm saloon. The world will spin again tonight. The lamps will be lit. The piano will play. Men will come through the doors with coins in their pockets and something hungrier in their eyes. And your girls will smile, laugh, dance, pour whiskey, and barter bits of themselves in exchange for survival. But for now, just for this moment, the house is quiet, safe, and yours.